Welcome back, guys, for episode 26 of the Popcorn Square podcast titled April is Upon Us. And we're going to discuss a couple films that are going to be coming out in April. My list goes as, and this is Neff, by the way, joined with
Kage.
And Buttons.
Okay, let's jump right into that. So my list goes with the first Omen, which is due April 5th, right? Abigail, April 19th. Civil War, that's an A24 production, guys. That is April 12th. Rebel Moon 2, we spoke about that on the Popcorn Square before and the weekly, guys. That comes out on Netflix April 19th as well. And then the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and that's going to be starring Henry Cavill and a couple other people there. That's April 19th. So that's my list for this month. Not a long list, a couple interesting titles there. I think maybe I'll watch 2 out of the 5 there as far as in theater. I know I'm going to watch Rebel Moon at home, but, you know, I think it's interesting. We've talked about this in a couple episodes before. You know, this year is kind of hit and miss with the film so far. I feel like April's a little more of that hit and miss. Are there some interesting titles there? Yes, there are, but there's nothing that really stands out to me to where I feel like, oh, I have to go watch that. You know, we're recording today. I believe Godzilla has just come out, so we'll talk about that a little bit going into April, but we're really focusing on those April titles right now. So that's my list. We'll go around the table. We'll go with Kage, and then we'll hit Buttons next, and we'll see how they feel about these titles. Go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, April is, I'm just going to be blunt, it's kind of looking a little bleak for me. Not a lot of heavy hitters that I'm like dying to go see. So just like Neff said, the first Omen, April 5th, I'm interested in horror and suspense and all that, and so I watched I'll make this clear, the remake of Omen that dinged me with friends in conversation recently. Yes, I know the first Omen is not an original thing. It is a remake, just making that clear. But I think, I want to say 2006, maybe, is when Omen came out, the first one that I saw. Mm-hmm. And
I want to say this is going to be a prequel.
Well, no, that's exactly what it is. That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah, first Omen's.
Yeah.
But
so,
they did do the remake.
Correct. You are right.
2006.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, because 2006 it was the raising of Damien and how he came into power. Well, this isn't about Damien at all. This is about the events that led to him coming up, like coming into the world, you know. So it's like, okay, let's see what they do with this. This could be an interesting watch. And just for fun, I'm going to throw this out there. No one mentioned it. Sting. So Sting comes out April 12th. Sting, I'm hoping it's just a goofy, good time. We'll see. Basically, it's about a girl who captures a spider in her home, and rather than kill it like I normally would, she captures a spider, raises it as a pet, and starts feeding it. She cuts herself, bleeds or whatever, and it turns out the spider has acquired a taste for human blood. And then, for reasons, magic, whatever, we don't know, the spider gets big and it starts hunting people in the house. Kind of like Night Swim, but with spiders. Will the movie be filmed in just the house? I don't know. Will it be just the family? I don't know. So we'll see. I'm not expecting this to be a AAA movie. I'm hoping it's entertaining, but that's kind of where I'm at as far as April's concerned. Buttons?
Yeah, no, so I mean, I'm looking back at my list that I made at the beginning of the year as far as, movies that were going to be coming out. And for me, again, April looked very kind of just like a passing through month. Like they threw a couple titles out there, but nothing that really was catching my eye overall. I had First Omen on there, Rebel Moon 2, because again, as we talked about previously, it's like, saw the first Rebel Moon. I want to give Schneider a chance to kind of give me a little bit more meat and potatoes, hopefully, in this second Rebel Moon here. So definitely will plan on watching that one on Netflix. Godzilla, Kong, it came out just recently. It's not something I'm going to see. I just felt like after the second movie I watched, I was like, this is just kind of...
Yeah, I agree.
It's just kind of starting to looking a little bit more ridiculous. And so, but you know, we do have that wild card out there, which is Neff. I'll probably mess up the title. The Marvelous or whatever.
Oh
it is.
yeah, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Yeah,
What a title!
Yeah, I know it's a mouthful.
I don't think it's long enough.
Yeah, let's add a couple more words.
Yeah, and that one is definitely giving me some strong like Inglorious Bastards vibes, and so it does. It's definitely, you guys. It's a comedy. It's not going to be based in realism, although I do think there is some, you know, little spot in there where it says it's based off of actual events. But looking at the trailer,
but a lot of action.
It's gonna have a lot of actions. It's gonna be bloody, gory, and in your face. And but it's not going to be based on like a serious note.
It's not a serious depiction of World War II.
Exactly.
Or anything like
yeah.
that.
It's a, hey, let's have a good time, and we're going to tell you about this weird thing that happened.
Almost like satirical.
Yeah, almost. But like I said, it's very like, you know, just based off of how the characters are being presented, it's almost like the Expendables vibe to it as well. But it's all like, let's get this ragtag team of, you know, undesirable characters together to go do this mission.
These mercenaries.
Yeah, and it's almost like a Mission Impossible thing where it's like, well, we can't take credit for anything that you guys do because you're like a bunch of, you know, off the wall.
You're basically like Black Ops.
Yeah. So I mean, anybody who's interested in seeing that, no, it's not Dunkirk. No, it's not.
Yeah,
it's
1917.
You know what you're getting.
Yeah, go into it, you guys, just looking for a good time. Don't sit there and be like, that's not the weapons that they would have had in World War II. Although I kind of hope that they did do their research on some of the material. They're not going to pull out like random, you know, out of time period pieces. But again, don't sit there thinking like that's gonna be a realistic portrayal of World War II, as Neff mentioned. But so it's definitely on my list of maybe, like, especially watching the trailer, I was kind of like, you know, I do again. I think it was a good choice for Henry Cavill because he's got that look to him. He's got that you know, build. And I mean, if you're gonna have somebody who's gonna try and take over like Brad Pitt's kind of shtick as far as, you know, these type of movies and that type of character, I think Henry Cavill is a good choice. But yeah, I mean, those are really the only ones I'm looking forward to. I don't think I'm going to see the first Omen in theaters. I mean, I like the paranormal movies and I like the Exorcist kind of movies and things like that. But for some reason, the first Omen is just not really catching too much of my attention, just because I think the story itself has been a little bit overdone.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's talk about the budget. So I was doing some research on a couple budgets. I couldn't find a lot of information on a lot of these, but there are a couple I did find. So I want to start out with Civil War, which, like we said, A24. It has a production budget of $50 million. Rebel Moon, $83 million. We spoke on that before. They have split the budget between Rebel Moon 1 and 2, so $83 million for that. And that was the only, I guess, couple films I could find budget information for, which is very interesting because a lot of these films are coming out within the next month. You would think we'd have some reports on that. But I think as we go along into the month of April, we'll get more information and we can speak on that in more detail and then actually see how the box office pans out for those films. But, you know, I think for Civil War, I don't know what they're going to be doing. I know it's going to be more set in realistic terms as far as that film goes. So $50 million, it seems like a realistic budget for that film. We'll see what that film does. It's a theatrical release, so we will see what that film does. It could do well because the budget is somewhat tame, and I think if it gets enough word of mouth, people will go and watch it. You know, it's kind of stoking the fire there, but, you know, we'll see what happens with that. As far as Rebel Moon, you're not going to be able to see anything that's, I guess, concrete with the box office because it is a Netflix release. So, you know, based off their metric, I believe Netflix really looks at subscribership and viewership, especially in that binge category of watching.
Many hours.
Correct. So, like we said, we'll never really get a definitive number as far as box office goes for Netflix, but we can speculate what the film will do. Will the film carry over as far as popularity with the second part, Rebel Moon 2 Scargiver? I don't know. As far as Rebel Moon 1 went, I'm sure people were talking about it. I think we talked about the reviews. The general consensus was that it was an average movie at best. I don't think people really scored it very high. So will that carry on to Rebel Moon Part 2? I don't know. As Button said, we're interested in watching Rebel Moon Part 2 because we want to see how Zack Snyder closes this thing up. We've also got some information that they may be doing a trilogy as well. So we'll see if they continue the story. So it's something to keep people, just interested in what they continue to do. And, if they decide to close it here, let's see how Zack Snyder finishes up his idea. Like I said, we can't really give this thing a definitive review because we haven't seen the full idea. So we'll be fair. We'll see what he does for that. I'm excited for it. We'll see what happens. I thought Rebel Moon 1 was an okay picture. It wasn't the best. To me, it really did strike me as a Netflix production. So with that being said, Rebel Moon Part 2, I'll be watching that. We'll see what goes on with that. Like I said, the first Omen, I know me and Kage were interested in that film. I'm not really interested in the, I guess what I'd like to say is, the Exorcist type of storytelling, like that type of genre. I'm not really into that, but there was something about the trailer that actually had me interested in this, and also the connection to the other Omen films, which I think are pretty interesting. So like I said, I'll most likely be giving that one a shot. Civil War, we talked about that a little bit. Like I said, will I watch that in theaters? Probably not. Abigail, I probably won't watch that in theaters. Maybe when it hits streaming, I'll give it a shot. I wasn't really grabbed in by the trailer of Abigail. I don't really understand what direction they're really trying to go in with that. If anybody's seen that trailer, please chime in the comments and let me know what you think. But I don't feel like there's a definitive direction with that film. So I think I'll pass on that one as far as the theater goes. But like I said, Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is something that I think is going to be very interesting. I think it'll be a fun movie. It's nothing to go in there and be too serious about. I like the cast that they have. And like I said, I like that Inglourious Bastards feel that Buttons was actually speaking on. I do feel like it does have that spin on it. And, I would encourage people to watch the trailer because it looks like a fun film. So we'll see what happens with that. But that's just my gist of the films as far as their budgets goes and what we can expect from box offices and what I am actually going to participate in watching. Buttons, do you have something?
Yeah, I was going to mention because, I didn't really speak that much on Civil War, but I did find it interesting, and I know I mentioned this, off mic before with Neff, which is that Kirsten Dunst has attached herself to this film. And, to my recollection, she hasn't really been forefront in any movies in a while. So, she is, and I kind of mentioned that sometimes you'll see some of these actors that used to be really big. And, Kirsten Dunst was, she's had a pretty long, history of movies and that all the way back to when she was a kid and did Interview with a Vampire. So, and then of course, Jumanji and, as she got into it, she was in the OG Spider-Man movies with, Tobey Maguire. So, she's had a pretty long career, but she's kind of fallen off, and now she's popped back up again. And so I'm thinking she's using this movie, Civil War, as kind of, a way to relaunch herself, because she did some Netflix stuff, or maybe it was Amazon Prime. It was kind of like
something on a streaming.
Yeah, she did some streaming stuff, exactly. So now this is back in the studios, back in the theaters now. So I'm thinking she's saying, you know what, I had some success. I think it was like The Power of the Dog or something like that, that she was in with Benedict Cumberbatch. So, that's a pretty good pairing right there. So, I think this is a good way for her to get back in the theaters if this movie performs well.
Right. What do you got, Kage?
Yeah, so I was wondering that you're absolutely right. We haven't seen Kirsten Dunst in anything in a while.
Not in theaters, right?
Well, right. Yeah, because the last time that I can see here that she was in the limelight was The Power of the Dog.
Yeah, that was a streaming.
Yeah, that was on Netflix. That was in 2021, and before that, in 2017, what do I see here? Woodstock on Tubi.
Yeah.
On another streaming service that I don't have, and to be quite honest, I'm not bragging on anybody. I don't know anybody who has Tubi.
Yeah,
Not a soul.
It's
when
still
we
fairly new streaming service. I don't think it's got a lot of attention and traction.
Yeah, because we talked about that in a prior episode of streaming services. Max, Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu. Those are like the big
Apple TV.
I mean, like those are kind of the big. Tubi is like bottom tier. Yeah,
Tubi's like free TV programming.
I think it is kind of more of the free.
Yeah, so she hasn't really been doing much in theaters. I think her last big theater thing was, and I haven't seen it to be fair, Hidden Figures.
Oh yeah.
Actually, that was a big movie.
I think I
that
did
was a big
see
movie,
that.
but she played a very small role.
Yeah.
And kind of with Power of the Dog, it was definitely a supporting role. So this kind of looks like more like she's one of the main characters in this Civil War. So this is like a return for her to like kind of being like that leading lady. And I mean, this is an ensemble cast, it looks like, with Civil War. So I mean, she's not going to be like the main character, but it looks like she's one of the main characters.
Yeah, she has an important part within
Correct.
that cast in the movie.
Like,
what do you got, Kage? What you got?
Like, I don't want to sound harsh or anything, but like,
and she looked rough in this movie.
Oh yeah,
But I'm sure that's just her character in the movie. It's supposed to be a like this whole anarchy, post-apocalyptic or anti-government or whatever you want to call it. So I mean, she's gonna look a little rough.
Yeah,
I
I wouldn't expect. If we're talking about a movie of war, that everyone's going to be dressed to the nines, their hair and makeup and whatever's going to be perfect. I wonder if, depending on the success of this movie, what this is going to do for her career. Is this going to bring her back? Are we going to start seeing her in more roles, stuff? Because kind of looking it up, I'm like, you know what? I thought about it. I don't remember her being in a lot. Jumanji is like the first front part of my mind. It's the first thing when you say Kirsten Dunst, two things that come to my mind: Jumanji, Spider-Man.
And I've seen her play some of these smaller roles.
Small Soldiers.
Small Soldiers. I got some friends out. Do that again. I got friends out there that would have some words with me after episode. Yeah, Small Soldiers. Everybody gotta love Small Soldiers because everything else is just a toy. Yeah.
But
what a classic.
I mean, there's definitely been some more kind of like artsy films that she's been in where, and I guess you could maybe call them chick flicks. So like I really liked Wimbledon, I liked Elizabethtown, and she was kind of that love interest leading lady in both those movies. Ironically, when you look at the comparison between the movie that Zendaya is putting out right now,
which is an April release.
Yeah. So that one is
The Challenger,
the Challengers or something like that.
Something to that effect.
The Challengers or something like that. Now I saw the preview for Challengers and I was sitting there going, you know what? I think that's a good move for Zendaya. Like I feel like that's a strong movie for her. She's playing a very powerful character, if not a little bit kind of manipulative. It seems like, but I still think that that's going to be a good time for the people who want to watch those kind of movies. It's definitely leans towards being a chick flick. So I mean, if anybody's interested in seeing that, it is a sports movie. It's tennis. It's Zendaya. It looks like she's playing like I said, I like Zendaya as an actress. I think she's got good range. And so I feel like this movie is another way for her to kind of stretch, that acting ability of hers and kind of give, hey, this is, I'm playing supporting role in Dune, but this is Zendaya. This is like, you're going to come see this movie because Zendaya, not because it's a nice ensemble cast or anything else. Like they have marketed this movie, Challengers, as being like, hey, do you want to see the sexy side of Zendaya? Here you go. Like, here is a movie.
Yeah, it's a little more edgy.
It's definitely edgy her. And of course, it's got like this love triangle going on in there. So again, it's a chick flick, guys. Yeah. It's not going to be, action and all this other stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point you brought up, too, Buttons, because this is really when you're seeing her at the forefront of the film, where usually she is supporting.
Right.
Or it's a balance where it's not that she's so much supporting, but it's well balanced out to where
Like
you
an
can't tell
ensemble
who
kind of-
who has the edge there. But this one, it really seems like it's focused on Zendaya's character,
Correct.
and she
She's-
has control within that film.
Yeah, she's really. I gotta say though, like I can't tell you that I've seen a ton of Zendaya movies, but I can say that she is establishing herself pretty well. She's not in crap. Like the movies, she's getting put in. The shows she's getting put in. I've never seen that show Euphoria, but I heard that's really good.
Euphoria's got a good reviews. She also did one of her earlier films, like when she was jumping from small, like television shows and the small screen, I guess you could call it. The Greatest Showman was a really great movie for her to attach herself to because, she's got that whole, past. Childhood actress, with the singing. I think it was, what was the show that she was on with? I think it was Disney.
I think it was definitely a Disney production.
I think it was a Disney show. But basically Zendaya, she was like, hey, I'm an actress, kind of like a teeny bopper kind of thing where it's like, I can sing, I can dance, I can act in these smaller shows and that she did either with Nickelodeon or Disney. And, for fans of Zendaya, I'm sorry, I was kind of already out of that phase when she was coming up in those shows, so I can't really say that I'm still watching a lot of Disney and Nickelodeon productions that are geared towards 11 and 12-year-olds, except for maybe Sulphur Springs, y'all. And if you haven't seen Secret of Sulphur Springs on Disney, it's on Disney Plus, so that's a good show to go watch if you're interested in kind of that kind of show. But anyway, going back to Zendaya, she goes into Greatest Showman, and that was a good launching one for her. Then she got those Spider-Man movies, and so now, like you said, now we're seeing her in Dune, and this is her first movie where it's like, hey, I'm leading this movie, like I am carrying this movie. So we're gonna see how this works out for her, because this is the first time where it's like all on her shoulders. Like, let's see if she has that star power to put, butts in seats.
Right.
So I feel like this is the first movie where she's actually going to be doing that.
Good point.
She's going to be an actress to watch over the years.
Oh, for sure.
She's seen some heavy hitters.
And good quality stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
Now, not everybody, of course, we know actors. I don't believe there's one actor. Could be wrong. I don't believe there's one actor where every single movie they were in was absolutely great. You know what I mean? General consensus is great reviews around the board. I don't believe there is one. So there's going to be some things where, hey, she might take the more artsy route, and not a lot of
Right.
people might not see that, or might not just hit the right population, and people might say, hey, you know what, that one wasn't that good. But her trajectory is going in a good direction, and she's picking the right films to really catapult herself into a superstardom type level
Right,
actress.
right.
So
Time will tell if Zendaya becomes the Brad Pitt, the Tom Cruise, just based
Well,
on the trajectory that she's going.
Yeah, I mean,
will
like
she
you said,
be one of those heavy hitting
can
actresses.
she carry her movies forward? And I mean, for this being one of her first, female lead kind of romance, like we've mentioned before, most Hollywood looks at these actresses as being the leading lady, and they have to have these romance movies. So I mean, some of the bigger names would be like Sandra Bullock, Reese Witherspoon, even back in the day, Katherine
Julia
Heigl,
Roberts.
Julia Roberts, yeah. So I mean, Scarlett Johansson, all of these characters, these actresses, where they're just thrown in a lot of these big roles, as staying power. Either they're going to be thrown into like an action, character, like she always does these action roles, or she's going to be thrown into like the romantic line where she does a bunch of these romance roles. But Zendaya, she's been fortunate enough to where it's like, hey, Greatest Showman, that was a romance role. Hey, Spider-Man movies, these are action. A little bit of romance, obviously her character's a romantic interest, but it's more of an action film. So it's less of, her being just like, oh, this is a romance story purely. This is an action, and she's playing the romantic, role in it. And then, of course, Dune is the same thing. But we're not really seeing her be the action hero. So I feel like she's kind of going to lean a little bit more into being that actress that is the leading lady, the love interest, the romance interest, kind of thing, versus, like with Scarlett Johansson, where it's kind of more along the lines of she's the action,
it's like Angelina Jolie.
Jolie.
Her arc,
who was the one who did Charlize Theron? Charlize Theron's actually had kind of a little bit of a mix there. But again, she's played these action hero roles, and she's done kind of love interest roles. But I think she's kind of a little bit more in the action.
Yeah, well, they're most notably like Hancock and Mad Max Fury Road.
Right, exactly. And she's done several other movies. But, again, because, we talked about... was she Aeon Flux?
Yes, yes, she was.
That is Sharon. That's Charlize Theron.
Yeah. So again, that's another one.
I'm thinking of.
But you're thinking maybe
Djokovic.
Yeah, Mila Jovovich, and then
Mila
Kate
Jovovich. Right?
Yeah, and Kate Beckinsale is one of those ones because she did the Underworld movies.
Correct.
So she did. That's more action role typed, and like you said, Mila is action role with all the Resident Evil movies. So. Yeah,
good points. Those are good points. What do you guys think about the performance of these films that we've listed? What do you think they do? Do you think there are some that don't do quite well? Do you think there are some that do better than others? Like I said, it's kind of hard to gauge because we haven't been able to locate budgets for a lot of these. So like how I go into it when I look into how I think a movie's going to perform, when I'm speculating at the drawing board, I like to see where that budget's at. And then from there, I can basically project what I think is going to happen, because then I can align it with how are they marketing this film? How many times have I seen commercials for this, trailers for this? And then from there I can gauge what I think the film will do. And little side note, me and Buttons had a little chart on Excel where we'd have a list of movies. I believe it was 2022, and then we'd have the movie, and then we'd have I don't know if we had the budget for it, but I do think we speculated on the estimate of what the box office would be, and that was kind of a fun game that we kind of played throughout the year.
Trailers,
right, and then we speculated on which would make the most money as well. So that's kind of how I go in to gauge these films, but without being able to see the budget, I cannot really gauge it. Looking at the first Omen, seeing as how the movie looks like there's not a lot of CG or any not so much not practical. There's going to be a lot of practical, but not a lot of CG or green screen type stuff. Not a lot of VFX, I would say. I would say that budget, it looks to me, I would say $20 million, $25 million maybe.
They're relying on the suspense.
Correct.
Like the suspense, the tense moments.
Correct.
Someone's going to get, I don't think they're going to do a
randomly
cop-out.
Pop up,
right.
Well, it's not going to kill somebody off screen.
Correct.
Like, this is supposed to be the coming of the Antichrist. It's supposed to be dark and edgy and scary, and we're going to show you that person getting messed with because they tried to interfere.
I think if anything with the first Omen, the only thing that may hinder it is the release date. I think that the early April release date is probably not where they really want to release this thing, which also leads into me believing, like, does the studio really believe that this movie can do well? Because I feel like if it was one of those movies that they really invested enough money into, not that you have to put a horror film or a suspense or thriller film in October or in the fall, but I just feel like this title, I think it would fit more in that period of time in the calendar. So I feel like that April release could have a negative effect. But like I said, if the budget is tame, you can work wonders with a tame budget. When the budget gets too high, then you start having to try to figure out how can we maximize profits here?
Because they don't have they're not having like a huge all-star cast.
Correct.
Triple A actors. They're not.
This thing might come in under 25, like I speculate. It might be 15. But like we said, the lower the budget, the better for the studio to try to make their money. You know what I mean? So as far as Abigail, we could not find a budget for that as well. I don't know if that does that well. Like I said, based from the trailer, it didn't grab my attention enough to say, oh, I need to go watch that film. I don't know how that's going to do. Civil War, $50 million budget. Like I said, it's an A24 production. They tend to do pretty well well in theater. This thing could probably do maybe 100, 125 million. Do I think it's going to be a blockbuster? Maybe not. But if word of mouth spreads, and it is positive word of mouth, we've seen that works wonders in theater. Rebel Moon, we talked about that Netflix production. You're not going to see a box office on that. Will people talk about it in a positive light? We have yet to see. Like we said, Rebel Moon 1 didn't get rave reviews. It got mediocre reviews. People thought it was an okay film. Rebel Moon 2, let's see what happens. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, we've seen a couple trailers for this in theater. I don't have a budget for this either. Out of all these films, right, out of all these films, and when I'm saying this, I'm basing it based off theatrical releases. We're excluding Rebel Moon 2 Scargiver here. I think The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare will probably be one of the top grossers. The first Omen will probably be one of the top grossers based off if it has a tame budget. And then, not on my list, but the Zendaya-led, I believe the Challengers may do well just because of the market that it is targeting. So I think those will probably be the ones that actually have a very good April. And then I'll throw Civil War in there last. But the ones that I listed before, I think those will be the top of the heap for the April releases. I'll pass this off to Buttons. What do you think about the performance of these films in April?
Well, I mean, you know, we still have a couple of movies that are going to have, and this is just because I feel like April doesn't have some like really good titles in it, as far as that goes. But I think you're going to get a little bit of carry over for like Kung Fu Panda 4 for the kids, because I didn't really see a very big, you know, outpouring of material for them. So I think Kung Fu Panda is going to stay a little bit through April. I think Godzilla will too. Godzilla will stay a little bit as well. First Omen, I'm sure it's going to make money. It's one of those movies that, again, we don't usually typically have huge budgets for these horror movies, and so I'm sure it'll make some money. Will it be the top box office grossing for the month? I don't think so. Personally, I actually feel like your top three are going to be challengers. I actually think Civil War is going to do better, and and then the Warfare, that movie is going to do. I think those are going to be your top three. That's my prediction for April as far as the box office goes. Abigail and First Omen, I think they're going to be kind of tied. And again, I think Abigail will probably perform a little bit lower. But again, these horror movies, because their budgets are usually typically low, they're going to make some money. As far as that goes, I still think First Omen's going to make a little bit more money than Abigail. Again, because the trailer is kind of a little bit all over the place with her. It's a horror movie. It's a creepy, like, girl with, you know, this imaginary, you know, friend, Abigail, kind of weird. I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting from it, is like, oh, Abigail's mad. Like, how dare you tell her that I'm imaginary and not real or whatever. And then Abigail tries to kill everybody. But I don't know. Like, that's kind of what it looks like to me. And, you know, some people really like those kind of stories, like that kind of horror. You know, I love like Annabelle Creation, like, because that's kind of what that is too. It's like, oh, come play with my doll. My creepy doll has been possessed. And, you know, like
straight to the fire.
You know, so I mean, you know, that kind of, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, maybe it'll surprise everybody, and it'll actually be a very decent, you know, well thought out movie, just with a really bad trailer. You know, but I don't know. I definitely, like I said, for me, I'm not going to go see it. Same with the First Omen. Not going to bother to spend that money to see it in the theaters when they don't really grab me with the trailer. But Challengers, I think Challengers is either going to be 2 or 3. I think Civil War will be 2 or 3, and I think, personally, I think the box office is going to go to the Ministry for Ungentlemanly Warfare. I think that's going to be the top.
Sounds good. What do you got, Kage? What do you think as far as performance goes?
You know, it's really hard to say. So for First Omen, one interesting thing I want to point out. I know this is a remake. Disclaimer, just throwing that out there. I know it's a remake, but I'm just talking about the Omen that came out in 2006. first and foremost, the marketing on that, they really leaned into it. Did they have to release it on June 6, 2006? No. but they really wanted to drive that point home, and that movie didn't really knock it out of the park. It got reviews, it was okay. It was entertaining. I wasn't like looking at my clock or looking at my watch, like, okay, is this movie right? It held my attention. And I'll say it was entertaining. Did I run out and buy it? No. Have I seen it again? I think once on a rainy day it came on Netflix or something, and I watched it again. But that's about it. That being said, I feel like we know what we're getting with this universe. It's going to be creepy. There's going to be things happening, to people, when you're messing with fate, so to speak. People are going to die. Something's going to happen. Some mystical forces are at work trying to keep this going forward. So I think it's going to be much of the same thing. The budget for the Omen was $25 million. And I'm talking about the 2006 version. The budget was $25 million. The box office was $120.
So, again, we see that with those horror movies still making money.
Yep. Yeah, they still make money. So I suspect it's going to be about the same. I'm not expecting it to blow anybody out of the water.
But it'll still make money.
It'll still make money, right. But we'll see what goes on. And fun fact, I've never been a huge fan, but The Omen was the very last movie I think Julia Stiles was in. Can you think of anything you've seen or heard about
her? Like theatrical.
What you said it came out in 2006?
Yeah.
Wasn't she in the Bourne Identity movies? Did those come out before or after? I feel like, she played a very small character in those movies, but she was in them. Mm-hmm. The Bourne Identity, Bourne
spanned about
Bourne
14
Ultimatum,
years.
Supremacy. Or no, wait, maybe she wasn't in Ultimatum, she was in Supremacy, because she was like, her character came back just to be killed off. Sorry, spoiler alert, if you guys haven't seen that. Her character dies, okay? She's like, oh, I'm here to, let me help you.
I'm back. No, I'm not.
Just kidding.
And I think, if you look into her character, she has gone away from Hollywood. And she did that, I think, for personal reasons.
Sure.
And kind of like, maybe she'll return kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe not. Kind of like, do you guys remember the chick from My Girl? Macaulay Culkin?
I know.
Anna Chomsky, I believe her name was.
Klumsky, I know her face. I can't remember her name.
Something like that. Sorry, Anna. I'm very sorry. Your name is eluding me at the moment.
He needs his glasses.
Yeah, he needs his glasses.
I don't. That's the only thing I remember from that movie. Well, geez, I was having a happy day. Boo.
Sorry, guys,
So
but yeah, no, she came back through a television show, I believe, but she was out of Hollywood for a long time, and I think she cited like going back for school and things like that.
Okay.
After getting out of the movie business, but that. You never know. Julia Stiles, she could come back, but yeah, that's an interesting little tidbit there, Kage.
Yeah, well, and as far as the other film I mentioned, I said Sting. Okay, I'm saying this laughing a little bit. I have no idea who the actors are. I've just never heard of them. Mm-hmm. I'm not expecting this. I'm not expecting big things from this movie. I'm not going to.
It just looks like a fun time.
It just looks like a fun time. Like, it's like bottom tier. Depending on your outlook, like
kind of like our arachnophobia.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I was about to bring that up. Sharknado, and stuff. And fun fact, there is an arachnophobia movie being remade.
No, not my John Candy.
Yeah. I hope to see a spider hit with a shovel into a breaker box and have it skitter across the ground like a face hugger in Alien. Yeah.
Do you remember the movie Eight-Legged Freaks?
Yes, with David Arquette.
Yeah, David Arquette.
Yeah, for sure.
Everybody lives a good giant spider movie.
Oh, for sure. There, I'm curious. How this movie Sting will kind of put spider movies back into people's minds, not not just Spider-Man, obviously, because there is an Arachnophobia movie being remade. The original Arachnophobia movie came out in the 90s, July 18th, 1990. I remember seeing this in theaters, and yeah, it gave me arachnophobia. That's not a joke.
Yep,
that's
the
absolutely
point.
not a joke.
Nobody wants to be sucked dry by a spider.
I don't do spiders. I understand they kill bugs and blah, 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 but brown recluse is terrifying.
Hey, brown recluse eat the black widows, though, I believe.
But black widows don't rot your flesh.
Oh, you know what? No, yeah. So so wolf spiders eat brown recluse. So, but
The circle of life, I know.
these spiders that eat spiders were all like, yeah, but I still don't like spiders.
Yeah, yeah, like
Spider's a spider's a spider.
yeah. So I'm like,
Except for like Daddy Long Legs, they're cool.
because that movie instilled my fear in spiders, and I know it did for many other people that saw it back in the day. Because it shows spiders in the jungle. And of course, something has to happen to bring them to civilization. Oh no, they start breeding, and spiders don't have a spider. They have hundreds of spider babies. And so now people in the town, thousands, and people in the town.
Look at Charlotte's Web, even that, kids movie.
That was the happiest spider movie of all time.
Floating, like,
What's
Charlotte
worse?
had one like billion of babies, and you're like, no.
So the spiders movies, The Fly or Mimic.
I don't know. Mimic kind of gets me there. Because, The Fly, I'm all right with that. I mean, it's creepy, don't get me wrong.
I think we can all agree.
Mimic is...
The Fly, it's just
What about, like, John Carpenter's The Thing, though? I mean...
Well, that's not really buggy.
No, it's not...
Buggy.
Well, I mean,
Those-
the thing was kind of weird.
Not buggy like those. But
No,
you got
not
a good
buggy
point.
like those,
The
yeah.
thing's the top for me. But
no, that's a great question.
I'll let you think about that.
I'm still going to be thinking about that after this episode. That's really good.
So you got Sting is on your list. Is that like your number one you'd say for this month as far as interest level?
Excuse me. I'm going to say the first Omen is as far as interest level. And again, I'm not expecting first Omen to be like amazing. There's no big actors attached to it. I know it's not going to be like Avengers where there's tons of special effects. We're going to see a lot of practical. I think that's my favorite part about it, is that it's going to be practical and no-name actors because it gives me a chance to see, okay, what can you do? How can you impress me?
Like
what do
I
you need
said,
to bring to
a
the
way
table?
for them to win, as we just looked at, I believe it was 2006, right?
Yeah.
Keep the budget
So
low.
keep it low, and
'Cause
hopefully...
they could do 3X, 4X pretty easily.
We
Yeah.
don't know. Now, one thing I will say...
Especially with the list of movies that it's got to compete against.
Yeah, I haven't really seen, like, when movies are expected to be really good, the marketing team goes into overtime, and you start seeing tons of interviews, articles, tons of 2 or 3 trailers for Pirates of the Caribbean, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. Like when you got a big movie coming out, they promote the heck out of it. They have Comic-Con panels.
Most of these movies
you know
we
what
have
I mean?
not seen a ton of advertising.
Exactly.
for.
So given that the marketing has been so low, I've only seen one trailer for First Omen, and I've only seen one trailer for Sting. That's it. I haven't seen any murmurings, nothing on Screen Rant, nothing on the YouTube cinema people that I follow. No one's talking about it.
None of these, you know how like they go like when you go to the theaters and you watch like the new upcoming stuff with what's her name, Maria Menounos or whatever.
Yeah.
Like none of these movies are these movies that are on these. Oh, guess what's coming out soon? Or when they make those specialty trailers that are be all like, hey, clip from this movie. Don't forget to silence your phone because you don't want to ruin the movie, you know, that kind of stuff. Like none of these movies are on those lists. And again, we've seen trailers. I feel like the one that's been promoted the most for this month for me was Challengers. I feel like that's the one that's been getting the most promotions out there. So it's a interesting fact that you brought up there, Kage, as far as the movie production, pushing, for these movies to go out for advertising.
Nice. Any other thoughts, Kage, on the performance of the rest of these films this month?
Yeah, you know what? I think other than the movies that I listed, speaking on the movies that you guys mentioned, Civil War, I feel like that could get some attention. And also, I looked it up while you guys were talking. The movie with the longest name ever. What's it? The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
No.
What is it?
Ministry of
Ungentlemanly Warfare.
I still think you guys missed a few words, but I'm gonna just nod and say yes. I feel I kind of looked it up and I'm like, okay, that might be worth a watch. That's a curiosity for me personally. I think.
Again, it just
Fun
looks
time.
like it just kind of looks like a
Little
hey,
action flick.
here's some action. There's gonna be some explosions. There's gonna be some laughs.
I like explosions.
You know, there's gonna be.
What are your guys' general thoughts of the month of April?
I mean, we've already touched on it before, but again, April just
Kind of a weak month.
Yeah, it
Passover.
looks like a week. Kind of looks like a hey, because May to me looks like it's going to have some good titles.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
you know, I'm sure we'll talk more about those titles coming out in May. But I mean, for me, on my list, May is definitely got some stronger hits.
I remember we talked about February kind of being a dry.
Dry month.
Yeah, and I feel like
Most of those movies did not do well, but
So
I
April
think
might be repeating. You think?
I think so.
April is going to repeat. Yeah, I think
Interesting.
as far as like movies for 2024, the ones that we're actually going to see some like big numbers, I'm thinking we're going to see some big numbers in May. For as far as going to make that top 10 list for the year, I feel like May has got at least some stronger contenders.
Yeah, I gotta say I agree. April is kind of a meh type month.
I
There's
don't think any of these movies are going to make that
interesting
top
stuff,
10.
but nothing that's really that has you thinking, oh, I gotta go see this month. You could wait for it if you want to on streaming.
I don't think any of these are going to be in the top 10 for 2024.
What are you gonna say, Kage?
This might sound kind of harsh, but I almost feel like most of the movies we mentioned are just filler.
Yeah.
Hollywood doesn't know what to do, and this could be argued. This could be in consequence of the writers' strike. We have movies that are kind of just coming out. In the video game world, we have a term called shovelware, and it's just games that aren't expected to do well, but we got to make money. We're a business of making video
content.
games.
Throw
We
'em
need
out there,
content.
Stay relevant.
And it's the same thing with movies. We gotta make money. Movie studios are companies, and the actors are their workers, so they have to put out something. So unfortunately, I feel like April is exactly what that is. The something. We're just putting something out there.
Well,
Good
and
point.
as much as I know everybody here enjoyed Dune 2, I feel like it's seriously in the box office. I mean, not for what it is, but I feel like the studios were hoping for it to put some larger numbers up there to help cement it further. Especially if they wanted to do more movies.
Right.
And again, I know everyone here really enjoyed it, but box office wise, I don't know. Maybe it was because March was a poor release date, or maybe it was just because it's always going to land in that category of just not everybody's cup of tea. As far as that type of movie. And when we talk about blockbuster movies in general, wonderful visual special effects in this movie, but at the end of the day, it just is not hitting those billion-dollar box office numbers, and it may never hit that large of a box office with this particular series, just because, like I said, just because it's not everybody's cup of tea in terms of the type of movie that they want to see. But April, that's kind of what I feel about with this, is it's like, these movies, a couple of horror movies, a couple of, action-y kind of movies, just to kind of whet the appetite, just kind of keep you engaged.
Keep you, string you along till you get to the summer or the fall.
And to where all the big blockbusters are
Yeah,
going
I
to
feel
be.
like summer is the Black Friday for
Prime
the
time.
cinema industry.
Yeah.
That's where they're going to make all their money.
Yeah, that's where they're
'cause
going to
you-
get their
you have-
moviegoers.
Right, because you have summer. That's a big one for like action movies, comedies and stuff. You have October. That's where all your horror movies are going to come in, and then it's a mixed bag with Christmas. Christmas movies. I typically don't go to the theaters, me personally, for Christmas movies. I watch all the Netflix Christmas movies, the Disney Christmas movies. That's just me personally. But right now, I feel like we're kind of in a dead season, and time will tell. What we'll see in next year. We'll talk about that more in a later episode. But just talking about the long-term effects of cinema. In terms of the writer's strike, isn't it funny that 2022, or like before we had the strike, we had a lot of heavy hitters. 2023, it was like mixed, and so far 2024, the writings have been kind of Right now, the best thing that we've had all year is Dune and Beekeeper.
As far as our money makers.
As far as our money makers are concerned, I don't know what else to say. What do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. It's valid because the numbers tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got Dune at 626 million so far. So we got a clear 3x there.
Right.
So we'll see what it can push to. Like I said, I was speculating that it'd probably get to about 650, 700. So it'll probably do that 700. But yeah, pretty successful on that end. Some numbers for Godzilla first weekend, $194 million box office. So that's pretty good too for the
This
first
is our
weekend.
Godzilla Kong.
Godzilla Kong, yeah. That's $194 million first weekend. So we'll see where that tops out at. But as we talked about, and me and Buttons talked about it, how Godzilla Kong is probably still going to eat, no pun intended, throughout early April because the competition level just isn't there.
Right.
And interesting aspect, I don't know the rating for Godzilla Kong, but I almost feel like, not that it's a family type film, but I think it
it's
will.
PG-13.
I think it will be able to get the family involved because it's monsters. You know what I mean? It's CG monsters. Teenagers like this type of stuff. Adults like this stuff. As we talked about with Ghostbusters, Godzilla, King Kong, these are properties that have been able to span over 40 to 60 years. So it's something that people are they're entertained with. It's something that people like, and I think it's something that appeals to multiple generations of people. So I think Godzilla and Kong will continue to do well. I think that one could probably top out at maybe $350, $400 million, but we'll see where that ends out. Other than that, I think we had a great conversation on April. Anybody that's listening, you have got the complete rundown on April films. Of course, there's some in between there that might interest you. If there are some interesting films that we didn't speak on regarding the month of April, please chime in the comments and let us know what you think. And also let us know what you think about some of the movies that we did speak on, and if you're interested in actually watching those. With that being said, please like, subscribe, comment, ring the bell for notifications. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Popcorn Square podcast. This is Neff signing off with
Kage.
And Buttons.
Be safe.